Here we go. Thank you so much for tuning in, sharing in this now moment. This is part 2. I just did an energy update and just some synchronistic sharings of what I'm seeing happening in my reality and with others that I'm working with. And this particular video is just going to be an inflow message. So sometimes I write in flow, which I'm labeling or calling right now my somatic writing. Somatic writing. I do not necessarily automatic writing. I'm not necessarily channeling. I'm just connecting in as a node or a synapse in the heart brain of the universe. And I'm sharing that from my heart to yours. So here we go. And as we shift and change our directive, as we change our directional course, our chorus, our chords, as we shift our chords, we allow ourselves to tune into different so many different words are coming in. Diatomic, dynamic, dimensional flows. This looks different for everyone. It feels different for everyone. There are certain similarities that come into this stream, such as ringing in the ears, such as chills and goosebumps, such as electrical pulses that may stimulate the body, such as a major shift in thought patterns than we are used to experiencing. This will shift and change and morph and continue to change for many of us as we reach a new level of adaptability. That which has been sensationalized in the past no longer holds the same sensationalisms for us, sensations. We begin to step away from the old interchange and flow of accountability. And we move into a space and we move up into a space of more packaging levels. So I'm seeing packets of information and different stages of accountability. Like this doesn't count for us anymore. This doesn't add up to us anymore. We aren't playing with that. And I'm seeing a tennis match, love, back and forth, back and forth. It's like, I'm over this game. I'm going to go play over there. And as we roll out, as we move out, as we roll the die, if you will, the dice, this is an amplification. We are implying right now that there are multiple dice. There are multiple sets of die that we can play with, that we can tune into. And the variations that we have access to have, I'm hearing duplified. You guys, when I write this down, I will play the words out. I just read a couple of the things that I wrote. So I'm seeing in my mind's eye all the different bubbles or subsets that this is mapping into. So I'm seeing dispensation. I'm seeing that which is being dispensed or handed out. I'm hearing dispense amplification, amplifying immense dispenses of information. Spinning the senses, double amplification, and also always playing with PHI, the kuai, light language in there. We shift the flow of the field. Therefore, we shift how we feel in the flow. We change the dynamic diversity in which we are all experiencing these operations, these narrations. We become the narrator of new operations and new operating sets of movement patterns that become recognized within our body. This changes the sets that we are recognizing in our body. So as I say that, I'm seeing a volleyball player and again, match set, frequency set, spiking the ball. Oh boy. Now I see why I saw that. This changes how we set ourselves up for success. This changes the succession of events. This changes how we change the succession. Everything is then successively Okay, I'm being guided to play with this. I'm hearing succeed, the seeds, how we're basically everything that we're doing moment to moment is changing the directive. As I speak about this, I'm seeing the reference to our DNA, which I've been talking a lot about in all of my videos in code. But this is encodement. Our DNA, all right, so I'm going to go back into flow, and then I'm going to end this video with a description of the inscriptions that I have been seeing within this play on words. We flow in this way because it allows us to transcribe the we, the weave, the weaving of the transcriptions that are inscribed within our own inscription, within our own unfoldment, infoldment in the folds of our brain activity. For when we say we are accessing the weave that is spiraling out into the network of our reality. The pathology and the way in which we express is then able to interconnect and tap into the different dynamic exchanging patterns that are constantly changing the dynamic interexchanging patterns. This is held within an alchemical presentation of word influctuation, the influctuations of the words, of the sets of vocabulary, of the vocabulary, and the irregularity of the patterns is actually that which clicks and accesses the different mechanizations of our vocabulary. We are referring to not only the speech patterns, not only the letters, not only the letter, I'm seeing organization, like a word, A, B, C, D, but also the transcriptions that are encoded within the DNA. For the DNA holds within it a miraculous wavelength, the ability for us to miraculously change the length and the frequency of interactions within our own body mechanics, within our own inner dialogue, that then changes that which we have been boxed into. For these box frequency sets are boxed and held within a differential equation, the ability to differentiate the different ways in which we interact with our waves. As I say waves, I'm seeing ways like the map that you use on your phone. So this would refer to applications. We then change the different applications, we upgrade, if you will, and this then changes the way, the waves, and the ways in which we have the ability to light up the display on our own ability, on our own way of displaying these new abilities. I'm seeing a big screen television, I'm seeing a plasma TV, I'm seeing a marquee, I'm seeing a baseball game, and then I'm seeing that attached to all games, literally. All games that are being played on different fields within the field. You may not necessarily understand the exact lingo that we are using in this moment, yet your DNA does. Bandwidth, the bandwidth that we are expressing through. So I'm going to stop just for a moment. We're all vibrating in a bandwidth. Our alphabet, our language holds keys that we then tune into, such as the word love. That holds a key. How we are feeling when we hear the word changes the key in which we attach the meaning to the word love. For example, if we have a broken heart, we hear the word love and we feel sad. Yet love at its, I'm in flow right now, but in a different flow. Love at its base frequency of the letters or the geometry that encode or encapsulate the entirety of the word love are not just attached to that one particular emotion. They are not just attached to an L. They are not only attached to an O. They are not only attached to a V or an E. Yet that combination of those letters then creates a geometric display or a code or a shape or a sound or a wave pattern that then vibrates within our field of awareness, that then allows us to sync up with that particular pattern that then draws out or shapes our reality. This holding the patterns, and I'm hearing thoughts shape reality. And I'm being called to just kind of share. A lot of people have talked about this. The most recent synchronicity I had was on a Robert Ward Grant on Instagram and other platforms, and a quote from Bruce Lipton: thoughts, beliefs change our DNA. This is kind of what's being shared. I'm being shown also, let's define we. I use, and a lot of channelers, when we're talking, we say we. I am saying we as in O-U-I, which is French for yes. I see it as us. I see us being a collective of energetics, of energy waveforms, and that I am tuning into and mapping into these different waveforms, and I am expressing through a different configuration of patterns that then whoever's listening or watching can tune into from their own subset, which is a bubble within a bubble or reality construct. And this then pings in that particular configuration. As I say configuration, I see the 8. I always see infinite, infinitely. So and I'm hearing a lot of light language coming through as I do this, because that also does it in a different way. So let us sink back into this dynamo flow, if you will, this sunset, this ability to tune into the plasma frequencies of hydrogen. Let us go into different layers of this hydrogenation, this hydrogenating wordplay of alchemy. Oh, I'm seeing so much with that word in itself. I'm hearing hydrogen genetics, hydrogenetics, hydrogenous, hydrogen monotony. See how many different combinations we can tune into. But as you speak, you tune into the ability to categorize certain formations of categorizations or word geometries that were once held or encapsulated within a different geometry or an encodement system that is now interlocking and interchanging with our ever-changing codes, meaning our nodes, meaning our brain nodes, our synapses, our crystallization, our crystal realization, our inability versus inability, our inner ability to map into the different codes and codices, the matrices in all things. We focus primarily on the relevancy for this particular frequency pattern. For each of us will hold a different geometric baseline. This becomes our own innate, okay, that's a play on words. We already have the innate ability to shift our frequency at any given moment. Yet moment to moment, we are being infiltrated right now with many different frequencies that at one time may have rocked our chain, may have pulled our chain, yanked our chain, may have pulled us down to rock bottom. Yet we choose now to rock the party. Guys, that's a reference to Flight of the Conchords. I like to rock the party. We like to rock the party. Who likes to rock the party? Okay, and the reason I'm being shown that, Flight of the Conchords, there's lots of different variations, Concordian, Concord, the Concorde that takes us through the airport. But I'm also being shown, the funny part about that is in that show, they have all these amazing songs. They sing all the time. They write these amazing lyrics, yet every time they play a live show, they only play one song. And this comes back to monotony. We're shifting and utilizing our own skill sets. We've all got different tones. We've all got a different way of playing in our own reality. Let's be diverse and break up the monotony that is the same old story that's pulling us down. And I could go into that tunnel. I could go down that rabbit hole because I'm being shown an example of but as soon as I say that example, it's going to pull a certain amount of people who are watching or feeling into this, into that tunnel as well. And they are going to notice perhaps their energy shift around that particular subject that I might be seeing as an example right now. So maybe I'll share that at the end. No matter what we are tuning into, it is shifting our frequency. Therefore, why not shift our frequency and directives to that which is shifting our frequency and directives to that which is heightening our sense of awareness and stability? I'm seeing several different things. Like there are certain people who feel like they're stable by tuning into the instability, yet this is only applicable if they are aware of their own inner acuity, their own ability to change and be acute. And I'm seeing acute versus obtuse. Whew, so many different layers there. And we just shifted the direction into that particular reality without talking about that particular subject. So those who are able to be acute, to be acutely aware of their own senses, of their own sensibility, of their own common sense, those are the ones who are shifting at a much broader bandwidth. They are essentially assisting in stretching out, spreading out, and spreading the word. Okay. Let me rein it back in. I'm seeing so many applications, and let me just simplify it. I know I'm speaking in like this weird coded dialect, but what I keep tuning into is dialect, dial up, dialect, dial up. We're dialing up and changing how we communicate with our bodies, with each other. So the less obtuse we are, and when I say obtuse, I should go back down and break this all into different subsets, but stubborn. Like there's a lot of people who are stubbornly going back into these places, yet they aren't being aware of their own acuity. Like, and as I say acuity, that's a big play on words. Some people are going to hear that as meaning one thing, and other people are going to hear that as meaning another thing, just like love, the example I used earlier. So this is more about our IQ. This has more to do with our inner IQ, our innate, that we are all up leveling if we're not obtuse about it. So even the people that are obtuse are still up leveling from another perspective, but they're not necessarily aware that what they're feeding, I'm being shown, because we're all up leveling comes new heightened senses of responsibility. And the more we are able to shift our awareness through our own acuity, that's all play on words, fluidity, by being fluid and by saying, I liked that yesterday, but today it's not for me, and being okay with that. And this relates back to the video I did earlier about letting it go. Letting go of ego, let it go, and letting go of even being attached to what the ego is, and letting go of even being attached to what letting go means for us. Just shifting, changing. And that will then bring us into a new stability, a new platform, and a higher rate of variability, of inevitability, stepping out of the inevitable, our beliefs around what the inevitable is, brings us back into the true diversity. And I'm just going to go back into flow. This allows us to tune into our own inner university, our own inner universe, our own individual versions of us. So this, playing with this word a little bit, this allows us to step out of the old verbiage, the old verses of things, us versus them, verses as in a book, statements, limiting statements, into out of adversity into diversity. And when I say adversity, I'm seeing the ads that are constantly being thrown at us. I'm seeing what's trying to be added on to us that is unnecessary. I'm seeing adversary versus, lots, like the inner fairy, the elemental, the innate, that which we truly are connected to, begins to stimulate within us, stimulate our senses, and in turn, we begin to stimulate this. And I'm seeing the, for that which has been set out, that which has been set out to destabilize us is also taking a turn for the worse. We'll play on this. This is also taking a turn for the worse. This is also taking a turn for the worse, because it is unable to complete its cycle, because we are breaking it off at the term. Back to verse, verbiage, words, right? A stanza, a verse, adversity, term, what it means, the end, how we say something is. Revision. We are revisioning our vision. We are re-envisioning and coming back to a more complete sense of self. This keeps us in a space of higher self-worth. This pulls us out of the lack of our own keys, the inability to see through the lackey. Okay, this is a play on words. I'm just laughing because I didn't know what a lackey was, and it came up as servant. So this is taking us out of the lackey, lacking. We're the servants, we're here to serve, but this is a play on words. And oftentimes what I've been shown through my friend Candace, who's very much into the gene keys and the human template, I can't remember what it's called right now, but she does sessions around that. And my friend Jess, who's really into the astrology aspect of it, and other friends who are also into this, oftentimes it lines up with astrology and the I Ching. And what I'm sharing sometimes has to do energetically with where we're at in transition, what it is that we're transiting through right now. And I'm going to come back to the play on words, but I was called in flow to look up what lackey is. And I think, and I might be butchering this a little bit, but this says to behave in a servile way towards someone. So a manservant or woman servant, right? So we're, ironically though, I think the gene keys is talking about us coming from out of immaturity into service. So there is a difference between serving and serving a man, right? A human. We're in service to humanity, which is in service to ourselves, but it's in service to the higher self versus in service to the self. So all of these are double words, right? It's double speak. It's like, I'm in service to self, or I'm in service to self-serve. So we can play with this in so many different directions, but it's taking it into this higher state where we become of higher service to the all, in flow and in a space of out of discordant, out of adversity of us versus them. And that means service to one individual or one particular system or one particular belief. And looking at this and saying, I'm here to be in the heart. And by being in the heart, by being in my body, by connecting all that I am and expressing in that way, I become a walking, I'm hearing constant. It's that constant, it's that long wave conductor of electromagnetism, of electricity. This allows us to see through the diversity that is being played through, that is being played out, and see the beauty in the true diversity that all of us encompass. For as we recognize this from a place of compassion, it allows us to change our directional course through our own inner action with one another in such a way that we become, we already are the Force. So again, I am the Force because I am a Jedi. And I think Dan Winter talks about this. So I have to go back and watch that video. I didn't really watch it, but something about raising the Jedi. This has to do with, we are changing our reality moment to moment there. And because we're in a different field, literally, matrix, our bodies have shifted, how we view our reality has shifted, our vibration because of all that shifts. The old is, it can't cycle back around. It can't be recycled unless we allow it to. This changes the cyclical pattern of time. This changes our relationship with time. This changes the directional, the shipment of time, the meaning that we apply to and around time. The time-based application signatures then shift as we sign up. As we change that which we are signing up for, as we change that which we are adding our signature to. And the more we expand our view of what that looks like, the more resonancy, the more I'm seeing so much. It changes everything. It changes our laws. It changes what I'm seeing the Constitution. It doesn't change that per se, but it changes the constituents that are involved in this construction. And certain baseline frequencies were set for a reason so that we can say, this is important to me. And I'm in such a space of flow right now. I'm seeing how important it is to be signing something that's made from heart-based interaction, from thou shalt not, from know thyself, from namaste, from how can we uphold one another, uplift one another, and not write things or sign things based out of service to greed, based out of service to man, not human or woman, just man, right? So it becomes, that is an old cycle and an old pattern and an old system. And what I'm being shown over and over again is it's not being allowed to cycle back around. Therefore, the outcome is not going to be the same that we necessarily think it is, or have attached our belief system to a particular point of view, aka trajectory, focal point. This also has to do with the DNA and our bodies. And of course, as within, so without, our solar system, the earth. And I'm being called to remind that as I bring up, like, let's say constituents and constitution, that was built on a foundation of love and service. And perhaps not every person that brought that to the table was necessarily all sunshine and rainbows. from one perspective, there may have been some discrepancies, but from another perspective, it holds a vibration because it's an example of upholding humanity. And I'm being called to just share briefly, let's not get hung up on the formalities. Let's not get hung up on just that piece of paper or that document. If we're all operating from where we, I'm just laughing, guys, I had to pause for a moment because Alexa just started playing randomly. And again, whatever beliefs we have around Alexa or AI or any of that, I invite you just to be open-minded and open-hearted in this now moment. The song that started playing was Let Them Up from Mad Max. I think that's pretty funny. So I did not obviously request that song, but I think that's really synchronistic and hilarious. And again, I could go do a whole video on, is it a real synchronicity or a false synchronicity? And once we're in that space of just being present with what is and really feeling into the flow and what we're being called to do from our own inner voice, then even if it seems like that synchronicity is coming out from outside of us and it's a false synchronicity, it's no longer false, it's real. If we're in a place of fear or we're in a place of we haven't done the inner work, we're going to continue to have things show up in our reality that are synchronistic to keep us thinking that we're on the right path, not to be caught up on right or wrong, but we're on a path of good things, when in actuality, we might just be on a path of continued patterns. So we're reinforcing through sometimes false synchronicity our old patterns. And that's a whole other video to be continued, right? So I know that's a question. Well, how do I know if it's a false synchronicity? How do I know if it's a real synchronicity? We could talk about that sometime if that's something that's interesting to anybody watching this. So let us redirect this for a moment. Let us move back into patterns. Let us begin to recognize when we regress. Let us regress though, for when we go into a space of regression, I'm being called to show two separate things. Not going backwards, but to go deeper. When we go into regression, we go into the past and we're able, like a past life regression, we're able to change our state of awareness to then become the witness for what it is that we have possibly experienced in our past. As we actively recognize the patterns that are coming up, we do not get caught in a state of digress. We do not go backwards. We go into a deeper space, or we dive into the lower levels of our past transgressions, and we then transform, transpose. I'm just seeing that whole word being played with. Transform that which was into a new wave form. So I'm seeing it, we interrupt the pattern. So instead of getting caught into these patterns, we interrupt them. And what I'm hearing is disrupt. Oh, okay. I was writing about this earlier and I hadn't finished. So let's see where we're going with this. We disrupt the patterns of disharmony. This disarms that which we have been fighting against. And again, this refers back to my writing that I did on Soma, Hadron, heart brain. There was a part that I wrote, put them up, put them up. So it's like we get back out of this fear. We disarm that which we've been fighting against because we're disrupting the pattern of needing to be up in arms over something. Not to say that this isn't required at certain moments or certain cycles in time for whatever the reason is, but we are in the process of making these adjustments to our frame. The frame is which we hold. I'm seeing a bicycle frame. That which we move on, that which we utilize as a ship, right? That which we build our reality around, and that which which holds our picture. A frame can utilize so many different things. It's the skeleton, right? We then are able to see the skeleton underneath. What has been buried deep below is now available to us right here, right now. So I'm seeing people using like X-ray vision. They can see through, they can see the frame and what it was built on. People can start to see that underneath their body and what's supporting them. How am I supporting myself? How am I supporting others? This changes. I'm being called to play with the word constitution. It changes what it represents for us and what it means to us, our own. I'm not just talking about the United States. I'm talking about in general. It's a representation of a fabric that was written on, that holds a vibration or a frequency in which we then built our reality around it. That is all shifting, but the basis is not. There is always going to be a base around our reality, but it's held at higher standards. But I'm being shown also that everybody's ideas and concepts around standards is different. And that is where the problem, the underlying problem is what I'm saying, that not everyone is in that higher space of knowingness, that higher space of recognition. And there is no right or wrong in that. That's just where they are. But they are not the ones who we should be choosing to uphold our new way of interacting with each other. We can only do that by doing our own inner work. And I'm hearing inner child. Again, it's coming back to a space of the golden rule, treat others. However, we are being called not to get stuck in ideologies that those who have not done the inner work are following and setting precedents around. Okay, so I just went into the rabbit hole and I realized this could be a valuable conversation. I'm going to rein it back in and end on another note. Okay, but first I'm going to all right, so we're going to play with that just for a second, and then I'm going to end this video. We talk about this. This is what, if you look up the etymology of constitution, be a part of a whole. That's constitute. That's simple. Let's make this, we're all a part of this whole picture, of this whole reality. That's all we're doing. If we can all be a part of it and operate from our highest, not always, we're going to have ups and downs, but come back to what's best on the basic laws of be kind. Maybe think of the 10 commandments. That might be a good place to start, right? Of people or things to combine or form a whole, to be equivalent to something. And then that moved us into appointed, together, stature. So many of us are recognizing that the leaders we appointed, whether we chose that or not, it was a choice that was made by a collective of people in a construction, what is it called? Soup, consomme, that we are all participating in. So in this sense, we're coming back to that wholeness through diversity, coming back into unification. But I just wanted to kind of share with everybody, what does that actually mean? Because this is a word play. Okay. So let us bring it back into wholeness and unification. Let us recognize that our entire skin suit, our entire body is also being called upon to suit up, to allow ourselves to fill the space that we have now created in this, I'm hearing race. That's a play on words. I'm seeing race, like one person going in front of the other. We're on this race. I'm right. No, I'm right. No, I'm right. You're wrong. Also race against time. Also race as in ethnicity. So we are all in a different form, in this form, in many different ways. Let us find, PHIND, our new construct. Let us recognize that as we form this together, we become a stronger, more fluid, and we become reality. And I'm hearing availability. So when I say availability, I see that we're lifting that veil, right? There is this permeable space that we cannot see necessarily with just regular eyesight. This is where the whole see with eyes to see, hear with ears to hear comes into play. So that ability for us to see through that veil is like here now. But again, what are we lining up with? What is it that we're creating now? I'm being called to kind of say it's not about what's on the other side of the veil. Let me rephrase that. It's not only about what's on the other side of the veil. When I say about, that's a direction, like come turn about. It's about everything. Therefore, what we are doing now is, from one perspective, creating what's on the other side of the veil. And from another perspective, what's on the other side of the veil has already been created. So it's so important what we focus on now. And that comes back to being in a space of grace, being present with what is, and really coming into a place of compassion and letting that guide us, our compass guide us. And I'm hearing strength in compassion. So this also has to come through with not participating in things that are not, oh, that's a whole other can of worms I'm kind of dipping into. So let me just back up and end on this note. We then uplift humanity and change our trajectory. We then uplift the course of that which it is that we have become, that we are becoming. And this allows us to shift the dynamic roles and availability of certain attributes that were perhaps at one time unavailable through inaccessibility to us. For as we stabilize the whole, it's kind of like a black hole is what I'm seeing. This allows us to reconnect with all solutions. Play on words. Okay, I'm going to end on that note. So thank you guys so much for tuning in and playing in this way. Obviously, I went into several different flows, but namaste until next time. To be continued.